What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven, and today we are going to look at my second week of Season 1 in the Ultra League using Gyarados as a leading Pokemon. This video is going to feature the same team as the first video that I put up on Gyarados, and it's going to showcase some of my favorite battles from that second week where I ranked up from rank 8 to rank 9. The biggest difference, of course, with this video is that Ancient Power has been nerfed. So Ancient Power is one of the main things that threatens Gyarados in the Ultra League, and it got a significant nerf, so now we don't really have to worry about that. One Pokemon that Ancient Power was on is the first Pokemon that we're going to look at, and that is Articuno. So because we don't have to fear the Ancient Power here, these Articuno games are pretty straightforward. Basically, you're going to see the same thing. I'm going to showcase 3 different Articuno games. I throw out a Crunch. They're going to shield it every time because the next Crunch will be weaker from that Icy Wind. They're going to fire out an Icy Wind, and then before I could get to my second Crunch, they're going to hit me with a second Icy Wind and KO me. I'm going to switch into Registeel, and that's where the battles will differ a little bit from there. So here's the basic play. I Flash Cannon, and then they bring in their next Pokemon, and I already have some energy built up. So this is an awkward matchup a little bit, the Swampert versus Registeel, but I don't like switching my Swampert into Swampert because then they have an energy lead, unless I have like a significant shield lead or something like that, which I actually would have had, so that could have been useful there too, but I just decided to go ahead and use my energy advantage to try to beat this Swampert. I correctly shield the Earthquake there, and then am able to take down this Swampert with a Flash Cannon. Then when my opponent brings in the Giratina, I can throw a Flash Cannon out at it, and they're going to be able to build up a little bit of energy here before unleashing a Dragon Claw, which doesn't even kill my Registeel, but the Shadow Claws do on the backside of that. But then when I bring in this Swampert here, even though they have an energy lead, because the Giratina's already taken so much damage and all of these shields are down, I know I can throw an Earthquake safely, and then it's just a mud move away. In this second game here, we are up against another Articuno, and I'm going to play it the exact same way like I said. So this Crunch is going to get shielded, and then we will just tank 2 Icy Winds from my opponent and switch into Registeel. From there, my opponent basically has 3 options. They can switch, they can take the Flash Cannon, or they can shield the Flash Cannon so that they can debuff the Registeel. So here we're going to see a switch. I'm going to farm up a little bit of energy, and then I'm also going to switch. I was hoping that maybe I could bait my opponent into charging up enough energy for the Dynamic Punch, and then catch that with a shield, but they are just going to Psy Strike spam us. So we do have to be careful here, but we were up on shields, so we make liberal use of those shields there, build up to an Earthquake. We are going to take 1 Psy Strike here before firing off a Hydro Cannon with the smallest sliver of health. Then when we go back into Registeel, we just fire off a Flash Cannon, and then we have Registeel against an unknown Pokemon, and it's Giratina, so that is a pretty straightforward one from there. Yeah, you heard me talk enough about how Registeel does just beat Giratina in the first video, but now, as you see, Giratina does have access to Shadow Sneak. So the matchup is a little bit closer now sometimes between Giratina and Registeel as we move into our third Articuno game here. The matchup is a little bit closer, but you do still win it in an even shield scenario for sure. So there is the shield on the Crunch, and then we're going to take some Icy Winds, and we shall see what my opponent decides to do from there. And this is a pretty spicy one because they go ahead and switch into Poliwrath, which I was not expecting at all. I go ahead and fire a Focus Blast on Poliwrath, and then I am going to have to shield this Dynamic Punch, and then I just go ahead and switch into Swampert. Now it's even shields, but Poliwrath has taken a significant chunk of its health. They are just going to go for Ice Punches. Oh no, that is a Dynamic Punch, right? And then they get in one more Ice Punch even still. So you can see just how good Poliwrath is against this team. I said I wasn't going to feature any Poliwrath leads, but there are some sneaky players holding Poliwraths in the back coming to get me. And we are able to double Hydro Cannon this Articuno, and then I believe we see a Giratina in the back. No, we see an Alolan Muck, which is still something super easy for Registeel to take down. So that's it. And actually, I think I edited this a little bit out of order, but one thing that we aren't going to look at in this video is games against Swampert leads and games against Poliwrath leads. I featured both of those pretty prominently in the first video, so you can check that out if you want to see just how dominating Gyarados is against both of those two Pokemon. But for this one, I wanted to show a little bit more variety in the Pokemon that I face. And I didn't get to showcase any Articuno in the first video, and that is a really, really popular leading Pokemon. So another Ice-type Pokemon in the Ultra League is Lapras. And Lapras has some pretty big differences from Articuno, but it's also a really common leading Pokemon. The biggest difference is Lapras uses Ice Beam instead of Icy Wind, so it's not going to be debuffing your Pokemon. And that means that they will have to keep shielding my Gyarados' crunches here. So I am going to actually shield this Lapras. These Ice Beams deal a lot of damage, so I do want to shield them, and then they are going to shield my crunches. Now, I don't have the timing exactly right. Typically, if I'm playing a lot more Ultra League, by the end of a run, I'll have a good idea of how much energy an Ice Beam takes to fire off. And then I will try to switch into an Ice Beam and catch it on my Registeel. This isn't something I ever attempt on Articuno, because then the Icy Wind would debuff my Registeel, and it puts me in a pretty awkward spot. So here we are up in energy and 0-0 shields Registeel versus Swampert. But because I just have such a significant energy lead, they don't even bother to go for the Earthquake, and I think if they went for the Earthquake, that might have been pretty good for them here, but I'm able to knock them out with a Focus Blast before they kill me. So then we see they have Clefable. I'm going to want to go into Swampert, and this was actually an accident. I hit the switch button, but I was like, wait, that's going to be great. I keep it up, and I switch into Gyarados immediately. As soon as Lapras comes up, that lets me fire a few Dragon Tails and a few fast moves from Swampert at the Lapras, which is going to be more than enough to take it down and swing the matchup in my favor. So this was a pretty close game here, and was able to maneuver it with some funky maneuverings, but, you know, there we go. We lost the lead and still won, so pretty good showing. I want to look at two games now against Registeel. That is a pretty common Pokemon. It's not a hugely common leading Pokemon, but here we see Registeel, and Gyarados is great against Registeel, so my opponent's actually going to swap, and they swap into Mewtwo, which is pretty fantastic for us, because we have such a huge energy advantage that my opponent is going to eat these crunches. I shield the first move just so I know what charge move we're dealing with. If Mewtwo has Psystrike, I'm going to try to switch into Registeel, and if it has Rock Slide, I'm going to try to switch into Swampert. So it's Psystrike, we switch into Registeel and eat one of the Psystrikes here, and then I believe... That's right, we are going to Flash Cannon this. They shield it so that they can get a Dynamic Punch. That's a pretty obvious Dynamic Punch there. So we go ahead and shield, and then they bring in their Registeel, and their Focus Blast deals a decent amount of damage to us. So we are going to be able to Focus Blast them back, and then I switch into Gyarados, and I thought I was going to get to the Crunch before the Flash Cannon, but I don't quite get there. So we are Swampert against their 3 remaining Pokemon. But you know what? I think we're able to do it. We have Registeel as a sacrificial swap. They have Mewtwo as a sacrificial swap, and I knew it was coming. I was just holding off on that Earthquake, and this is sped up footage. It's 2 times speed, but I was ready for that Mewtwo switch in, so I wasn't firing off that Earthquake, and then we are able to charge up to the second Earthquake against the Giratina. It actually helped us a little bit. It bought us some energy, and we are able to take down that team. Next, we'll see against Kent here that this Registeel, I don't believe, switches out. Or at least they let us get some damage on it, but these Flash Cannons are just not going to be damaging our Gyarados. I do think a Registeel should farm energy for a little bit and then try to switch out into a safe switch, neutral kind of matchup, but it's tough because there's not, there's some very polarizing matchups when you're switching into Gyarados. Something like a Mewtwo becomes a pretty big liability to switch into. So my opponent, I'm gonna use a shield here on the Flash Cannon because my opponent has shielded. We'll win any even shield scenario here. They shield again, and then they go for the switch. It's Giratina. They knock me out. But this isn't the worst thing in the world. I do like that play from my opponent to switch into something that can very quickly and surprisingly farm me down before I can make up my mind on what I want to switch to. But the fact that I get to then just throw in Registeel against a Giratina, yes, it is a Shadow Sneak Giratina, as we are talking about post-Ancient Power nerfs here. But even still, we're gonna have a pretty easy time against Tina here. So a bunch of Shadow Sneaks. We are now up a shield. I try to farm it down. I don't quite get there before this Shadow Sneak, but then it does actually take me down. And now I'm Swampert, and I have a shield. So this isn't the worst place in the world. I know that their Registeel has very minimal energy here. This is only going to be a Flash Cannon. No, it was a Focus Blast, and I shielded it. That's right. Okay, it's a Focus Blast, and I shield it, and then I farm it down. Okay, slight misremembering there. And then we are going to just try to throw some Earthquakes off at this Mewtwo. And we just barely get to the second Earthquake. So this match plays out pretty similar to the first Registeel lead, and Swampert firing 2 Earthquakes on the back end after all of those shields are down. So another pretty common Pokemon in the Ultra League is Cresselia, and luckily, even though it is a very powerful Pokemon, Gyarados is ready with Crunch for this Psychic type. So this opponent is going to shield the first Crunch, but they won't shield the second one here, and I am more than happy to shield these Aura Beams. I don't even know how much damage Aura Beam and Future Sight deal from a Cresselia. All I know is that I don't want to face that, so I decide to just shield this Aura Beam, and then they switch into a Scavalier, which gives me the time to farm up and fire up a Hydro Pump, and they take it, even though they still have a shield remaining. And I won the CMP tie. So this video, this battle right here wasn't really about Cresselia. Now we're in a Registeel versus Giratina matchup. There's nothing this opponent can do. This was just an insane battle to show off the power of Gyarados, because I loved that Hydro Pump taking out the Pokemon that my opponent switched into. So pretty crazy there. They do get me with a sacrificial swap there, and they are going to be able to take down this Registeel since they are going to be using Shadow Sneak, which is a neutral effective move. You'll see my health bar is almost gone. They got a bunch of health bar left. I'm going to fire off a Flash Cannon here, and then I believe, yeah, I switch into Swampert after farming for a little bit on Registeel, which is fine. You could play that either which way, but they're going to be able to fire off a few Dragon Claws at me, and I'm going to be able to build up to an Earthquake. So, pretty straightforward one. There was a lot of different ways I could play that at the end after Gyarados did so much work for me. And let's see. Yeah, this was a 5-0 as well, so I kept this in. That I was able to get a Scraggy from that. That's always pretty cool. We're going to look at another Cresselia lead matchup, and this time we're up against Abdu-Mersol. Now, you might recognize Abdu's name from Pokedraft. I've talked to him before. He's one of the best Pokedrafters in the world, so I was a little bit nervous, but then I was happy to see that we had the Gyarados versus Cresselia matchup. I tried to switch in to Registeel to eat the charge move, and he wasn't having any of it. He was fully prepared, and he was also prepared with a Poliwrath in the back. So I'm able to get a Focus Blast off of it, which is pretty scary. I'm going to shield his Dynamic Punch, the first one. I'm not going to shield this one here. I think I am out of shields at this point. Then I fire off a Flash Cannon as a shield bait, and try to get to the second one, but I actually just go ahead and switch because I am afraid that he's going to beat me to that move. I fire off a Crunch, and that gets Abdu's second shield. Then we see the Future Sight from Cresselia. You can see it is a pretty strong move, and then another Future Sight to finish me off. I go into Swampert, and again, I don't want to be taking these Future Sights, so I just throw out my Hydro Cannon here. Didn't have to charge it up all the way. I did get a little bit of energy on the Swampert, and here you see the Dynamic Punch from the Poliwrath, so I switched out just in time. There's a lot going on in this battle. It is a really well-fought battle. I am able to take out the Poliwrath, and then from there, I know he's not going to be able to beat me to Focus Blast. He fires off a Flash Cannon, and I'm able to get out an Earthquake. From here, he will be able to beat me to a Flash Cannon, so I just switch and throw out the saved Flash Cannon that is on my Registeel. But that was quite the battle, Abdu. Yeah, and it was fun to see you in the queue there. So yeah, well-fought battle by a very good trainer, and that's always nice. Next, we are going to look at two matchups where I intentionally lose a winning leading matchup. So here we have Gyarados up against Dragonite here, and this is a pretty decent matchup. We're dealing super effective damage, he's dealing stab damage, and I'm not going to shield, but my opponent is. So from there, we both deal a little bit more damage to each other, and Dragonite has so few health left that I'm going to let it kill me, and then I'm going to bring in Registeel. I don't have to care about this Dragon Claw from Dragonite, and I can just farm it down with Lockdown, which is a pretty rare and incredible thing. So now I'm up a shield, I'm up an incredible amount of energy, and we're up against this Mewtwo. So this Mewtwo is probably going to build up Dynamic Punches. It might try some shield baits with Psystrike, but the fact that it just has so few health left, no, it does actually go for the Psystrike bait here, so pretty good on them. And then when they shield again, no, they don't even shield again, so I thought maybe they'd shield and then go for the Dynamic Punch. We can actually shield this one here too, and then fire off a Focus Blast at this Empoleon, and then I believe I will switch right into Swampert, and then just farm up to an Earthquake. I will have to take one Hydro Cannon before that happens, but an Earthquake will basically take this guy out. So there's an example of intentionally losing the lead, and we're going to look at this battle. I didn't quite get the recording started at the beginning of the clip, but we have Gyarados against Scizzor, and you see they shield, and if they didn't shield, this is a winning matchup. Now, their charge moves charge faster than mine, and because of that, you can see how much damage that Crunch deals. They'd be dead if they didn't shield. we're going to let this Night Slash kill me. Then I'm going to go into Swampert, and I am just going to farm down this Scizzor. Now, this matchup can get a little bit trickier if Scizzor gets a boost at some point. You might find yourself needing to shield, and here I shield bait with a Hydro Cannon, and I get the shield, and I just had that much more room to play around with because I am up now 2 shields to my opponent's 0. I am going to protect this Swampert here, and I'm protecting it from Dragon Claws, so it doesn't feel that great, but I am just barely able to get to a second Earthquake, and now I have a Registeel plus a shield against a random Pokemon, and I actually let this Swampert build a decent amount of energy against me. But and I take an Earthquake actually, so that kind of surprised me. I wasn't sure how much energy, even in rewatching the clip. These are sped up a little bit, so it makes it a little bit tougher to count. I thought they were going to bait, they didn't. But even with incorrectly guessing the bait here, we do have enough time to farm up to that Flash Cannon and then take down their Swampert. So there you go. There's 2 examples of intentionally losing a good leading matchup, but then using that advantage to still snowball the rest of your games. Now I want to look at some more matchups that Gyarados loses. So first we're going to look at Fairy-type Pokemon, and we're actually going to win this lead here against Cortana Zoe, and this team might look somewhat familiar to you guys. I actually wound up seeing Zionic's video after I had played this battle here, so I didn't really know what was going on and just thought it was a really cool team. And it is still a really cool team here, but they're going to switch off of Charizard into Clefable, so that is an easy switch into Registeel. And I try to farm it down, and I try to waste some time on the clock, because otherwise Charizard is just going to come in and destroy my Registeel. So we take the Meteor Mash, we farm down a little bit more energy, and by that time the switch timer is up again. So then we are going to switch into Swampert, which is a pretty good matchup here. I don't know, though, that they have Togekiss in the back. I don't really want to line up Gyarados against Togekiss. So when they switch into Togekiss here, that is actually a pretty good thing for us. We can take out their shields now with Swampert, with these Hydro Cannons, and deal a decent amount of damage, and we are just barely off of being able to fire off another Hydro Cannon on Togekiss. Togekiss fires an Aerial Ace against Registeel. They didn't really need to do that, and now we are 2 shields to their 0, and we've got a Gyarados against Charizard. Gyarados is able to take out Togekiss, but it takes a lot of charm damage, and we're going to have to shield both of these Dragon Claws, but then we fire off a Crunch, and we don't actually even have to shield another Dragon Claw. We are able to take the Charizard down. So pretty good stuff there. Another matchup here, like I said, we're going to look at some more Gyarados against Fairy-type Pokemon. We want to switch into Swampert, and we're okay if we lose the Swampert because we still have the Registeel to deal with that Clefable. We fire off a Hydro Cannon, and then I say, you know what, I'm going to go for an Earthquake. It's neutral, and it actually does a ton of damage and KOs the Venusaur. I was not expecting that, so that was pretty nice to see. And then my opponent lets me throw out a Hydro Cannon on their Swampert as they farm me down. So their Swampert's got a lot of energy, but so does my Gyarados. We go back into the Gyarados, we fire off some Crunches on Swampert, and now I'm getting to use my Swampert against, or my Gyarados against this Swampert, and I'll be able to switch into Registeel for Clefable. So pretty nice switch maneuvering there to turn a bad lead into a positive one. Obviously, we hit that Earthquake there too. That was pretty good for us. But from there, I think that's all she wrote. My opponent can shield this Focus or Flash Cannon if they want, and they do. And they will get a Earthquake off on the Registeel, but then we are able to just come back in with Gyarados. We will take one Hydro Cannon, but that is not going to be enough to seal the deal. We will Crunch and kill this Swampert. So there you go. And then another one coming up here. This one's going to be Gyarados against Togekiss. So same thing, I'm going to farm down some energy a little bit, but those charms deal a lot of damage. We switch over into Swampert and we throw out our first Hydro Cannon, and I don't remember if this one gets a shield or not. It does, and that's why I like Swampert much more than Gyarados. We're still taking a lot of damage from those charms, but a Flamethrower, I don't have to care about that. Then when they switch into a Shiftry, Shiftry is a pretty decent Pokemon against my team too, but Shiftry really, he's good in the lead because he has fast charging moves and forces the shields, but Shiftry also needs shields. You see how much damage he takes even from a Hydro Cannon. We're going to shield this Leaf Blade, and then we can take down this Shiftry with just our Dragon Tail. Then we throw the Hydro Pump off at the Togekiss, and they don't shield. We take down their Togekiss, and now it is Gyarados, and I even have a Registeel against Swampert. So again, we were able to, with, some incorrectly lack of shields from my opponents here, but we were able to turn these losing lead matchups into wins with the power of Gyarados. My opponent's going to be able to build up to an Earthquake, but they won't be able to throw out an Earthquake and a Hydro Cannon, so I think a Flash Cannon might have taken them out here, but I just go for the Focus Blast, keep it simple. One other bad leading matchup, and this is a pretty common lead in the Ultra League, is Melmetal. So what I'm going to try to do is switch into the Swampert right as the Rock Slide comes, but I knew I didn't get it, so they are going to superpower me there, which means they have to switch out, and I'm just going to farm energy here and then try to bait this Giratina. And I throw out a Hydro Cannon, and they think it's an Earthquake. So I get the shield, and then I throw the Earthquake for real. At this point, I'm fine if they shield it. Now we have both of their shields, and I go back into Gyarados, and I am going to take their Dragon Claw damage here, and then when Melmetal comes back in, I will have to shield this Rock Slide now. Remember, they used Superpower before, so they still have a little bit of energy, but I'm able to build up to a Hydro Pump and take out Melmetal. So there we go, flipping the lead, flipping the script. Giratina's going to use the last of its energy here to Dragon Claw my Gyarados. I say that's fine. We go into Registeel, and now we are just Flash Cannoning this boy down, and I believe my opponent will switch and show us their last Pokemon here soon. No, they're just going for Shadow Sneaks. Maybe I'm forgetting which matchup this is. No. Okay, yeah, so they go into the Cresselia, and I think, okay, well, the Giratina has a little bit of HP. I want to line up that Giratina against my Swampert, which can throw out a quick Hydro Cannon, and I will use this Registeel here to throw out the Cresselia. Registeel can tank these Moon Blasts and these Future Sights, and Swampert cannot. So let's keep Swampert on the bench here. We let them get their switch. Registeel is just a beast, and I try to farm down their Cresselia here, and it doesn't quite work. They Aura Beam me. So then I go into Swampert, and I think I'm going to be able to farm down their Cresselia, but they switch super quick, so we just go Hydro Cannon, and then we kill their Cresselia with, it was one mud shot away, so not a huge deal. But there you go, there is me flipping the script on 3 losing leads and showing the power of Gyarados' Hydro Pump. We saw it against the Escavalier earlier, but there it is against 2 really meta Pokemon. If you can land that Hydro Pump, it deals a lot of damage, and is one of the reasons Gyarados is so strong. I haven't talked about it too much here, but there's also some matchups like against Scizzor where you actually want to be baiting the Hydro Pump a little bit more reliably, and maybe against Registeel too. I think I talked about that a little bit more in my first video, but definitely there are some opportunities where, you want to build up your energy and then bait your expensive charge move. Let's look at 2 more potentially awkward matchups for Gyarados here. First, we have Shiftry, and like I said, Shiftry is going to want to be a leading Pokemon, but you see just how much damage it took just off of my Dragon Tails. So I'm going to crunch this Shiftry, and it's not very effective, but they do have to shield just because Shiftry is so attack-weighted and such a frail Pokemon. So they go for the foul play there, and then I'm going to fire off another crunch. If I can get a second shield off of their Shiftry, that's pretty good, and I correctly figure they don't want to give it up just yet. They go into Registeel, which I like all of my Pokemon here against Registeel, but I don't mind using Gyarados to finish off the Registeel, and I kind of bait the Hydro Pump there, charge up a little bit more, and then switch into Registeel on a Flash Cannon. So this matchup was probably already over, but now it definitely is. They switch into Swampert. I have the energy lead here, so I'm going to be able to Focus Blast, but I do think this Earthquake will take me out because I have taken... Oh no, it just barely doesn't, but then they're able to farm me down. So well played from my opponent there. I go back into Gyarados, throw the crunch off at Swampert, and that one is pretty straightforward. We can see now why they went to Registeel, because they had Swampert in the back. So sometimes based off what your opponent uses, you have to figure out what they have left. But yeah, like I said, this matchup, we just had such a good lead despite having a Shiftry against our Gyarados. So yeah, Gyarados does, just with those Dragon Tails, really give Shiftry a run for its money. Here we have a more difficult Grass-type Pokemon to deal with. We have Venusaur, and Venusaur isn't super common in the Ultra League because a lot of things threaten it, but it's the top counter to Swampert, so you are going to see it. Try to trade some shields with it here. My opponent obliges. I really try to get the Frenzy Plant off on my Registeel to waste their energy, but just isn't happening. But they switch into Snorlax, and this is actually a decent place for me to be, as I guess they're looking to build up to an Earthquake here on their Snorlax, and this Snorlax does not have superpower. So this was a pretty obvious Earthquake. I'm able to shield it, and this is just going to be a Body Slam here, so that's fine. And then we Flash Cannon their Snorlax away. Don't remember what they bring in after that. Oh, that's right, they go back to the Venusaur. So their last Pokemon at this point has to be like a Charm user or something like that, and that definitely means we're going to go back to the Gyarados and crunch down this Venusaur to take it out. Gyarados, as you can see, is just a powerful Pokemon. It's just got a lot of damage that it is throwing out there, and it is a Clefable on the back end, so we throw a crunch off at it, and it's not going to be very effective, but Swampert will be able to deal with this Clefable pretty easily. They're going to like Moonblast or Psychic Us. Yeah, they Psychic Us, and it deals a decent chunk of damage, but Earthquake is going to deal a monster chunk of damage there and take out the Clefable. So that was a pretty scary one with the Venusaur taking down a Registeel, but Gyarados was still able to get her done, and we were still able to win that battle. So there we go. There are some really fun battles highlighting Gyarados' strengths, its weaknesses, and you might still be asking, well, how good is Gyarados? Why don't I see it out there? Is it really that good? Well, I did actually run into two other players playing Gyarados as well, so I wanted to show off those battles here as we close out the video. So let's take a look at those. I will say my Gyarados is the rank 1 IV spread, so it will beat other Gyaradoses in the mirror matchup. And here we go. So we're going to see a bunch of Dragon Breaths flying out at each other. And I go for the crunch as soon as I can, but they switched into the Clefable, which is a pretty good play by them. You know, we're going to have crunch at the same time, so switch as soon as your crunch is available. It lets me switch into Registeel, and I am able to farm down the Clefable from here. But then they go into Charizard, and Charizard's just going to be able to blast burn me down. Not much I can do, and that's a pretty good choice from them. I thought they were going to go back into the Gyarados, which is a little bit more of an even matchup, but makes sense because Charizard won't beat our two remaining Pokemon. I get a little bit of a lag there, which is pretty unfortunate. And now my opponent is up 2 shields to my 0. I'm going to go ahead and crunch their Gyarados, and they will shield me here. They'll take down my Gyarados, and then they'll be able to crunch my Swampert as well. So a really good use of a shield by them. And then when I go for the Hydro Cannon, I lost the CMP tie. They're going to let their Gyarados die, and now I've got to get to 2 Hydro Cannons because my opponent still has a shield. So I got to get to the other Hydro Cannon, and they beat me. So this was a super close game. Psych! It was Dragon Claw. I really thought I lost there, but it was Dragon Claw, not Blast Burn. Blast Burn actually deals more damage than Dragon Claw, so we were able to win that one as my opponent resigns at the end. And then for our last match here, we are up against a shiny Gyarados. So we are, again, just both going to be firing off Dragon Breaths here, and I'm going to go ahead and take this Crunch and hope that my opponent does the same. So this is a 0 for 0 shield here, and I bait my opponent into that because I know that if the match ends on charge moves, my opponent will win, but if the match ends on fast moves, I will win because I have a higher ranked Gyarados, which means a lower attack, so I'll lose any CMP ties. I can't really teach having the rank 1 Gyarados, but that shows how you can kind of, if you know what your IV spread is, play different ways in certain matchups there. So we go to Swampert against Scizzor. They switch to Swampert. So we have the energy lead in the Swampert mirror. So we're going to be able to use our Hydro Cannons first. And somehow we CMP tie. I guess I dropped a Hydro Cannon somewhere along the way, or dropped a fast move somewhere along the way. So unfortunately, we take a hit there. But then we bring in Registeel against Scizzor, and they do have a small energy lead against us, but I'm going to be able to farm up eventually once that lag goes away to this Focus Blast. And these Night Slashes aren't dealing any damage here. So we farm up to the Focus Blast. It's only a great Focus Blast, so we'll have to get a Flash Cannon in there somewhere. Yeah, a little bit of a disappointing end to the video, but I did want to show off these. Oh, and I just farm it down at the end. I don't even use the Flash Cannon. So there we go. There is some more Gyarados highlights in the Ultra League. Hopefully those battles did a good job of showcasing him. I think they did. I think that this team is really good, and you know, I thought I was done with this team. We're playing Master League right now, but Ultra League is right back around the corner again, and in that week where you are allowed to play any league that you want, I think I'm going to play this team. I think it's really strong, and I just have a really good grasp on the wide variety of matchups that the Ultra League presents. So yeah, there is a decent chance I'm still going to be running this team. I think I'll have my Registeel at Best Buddy at that time as well. Not sure what other future content I'll have coming up. I know I'll have a video on Celio in the Great League, so you can subscribe if you want to see that. And leave a comment to let me know what content you'd like to see in the future. Obviously, hit that like button as well to let me know that you enjoyed this video here. But that's going to be it for me, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace!